Blind or just incompetent? Serafina's voice, laced with ice, sent a shiver down Maya's spine. Another stake sent back. Another humiliating apology. Little did Serafina know, Maya had seen her, really seen her, tangled in a kiss that wasn't meant for her fiancé. Keeping that secret meant keeping her job. But telling the truth? That's where things get messy. Someone had to pay, but it shouldn't have been Maya. A single act of unexpected kindness and simple human decency would change things. They have no idea she's the kind of woman who refuses to serve poison, even if it costs her everything. Billionaire Nathaniel Sterling's perfect fiancée, Serafina Dwight, passionately kissing another man. Telling the billionaire would cost Maya her job, her livelihood, and the money she desperately needed for her sick mother. Keeping silent would let a powerful man walk straight into a devastating trap. Maya made a choice, and that single split-second decision ignited a firestorm of lies, betrayal, and a shocking twist of fate that no one, least of all her, ever saw coming. The aroma of white truffle and roasted duck fat hung thick in the air at a 3-Michelin-star restaurant in Tribeca where the silverware was heavier than a conscience. For Maya Donovan, the scent just smelled like rent. She balanced 3 plates on her forearm, the porcelain blistering hot, and navigated the dining room with a practiced, invisible grace. Being a server here wasn't just a job. It was a performance. You were paid to be unseen, unheard, and unfailingly pleasant. Even when a patron looked at you like you were something they'd scraped off their lubitus, Maya was an expert at it. She needed to be. Her mother's medical bills for multiple sclerosis were a mountain of debt that grew higher every month. And this job, with its rare but lucrative tips from the points or 1%, was the only shovel she had. Her least favorite and most frequent patrons were Table 7 Nathaniel Nate Sterling and his fiancée Serafina Dwight. Nate Sterling was tech royalty. His company, Sterling Innovations, had revolutionized global logistics with predictive AI, making him one of the youngest self-made billionaires in New York. He was sharp with intense gray eyes that always seemed to be analyzing data 6 steps ahead of everyone else. He wasn't unkind, but he was perpetually distracted. His thumb scrolling through data on his phone. His PC Felipe watch a casual, multi-thousand statement of his preoccupation. Serafina Dwight, however, was a different breed. She was old money from a family that hadn't earned $1 in 3 generations, but had opinions on everything. She was flawlessly beautiful, with icy blonde hair and a voice that dripped with condescending sweetness. To Nate, she was adoring. To the staff, she was a quiet terror. "This water," Serafina said to Maya one evening, pushing the glass an inch across the table. "It's tepid. I asked for ice water. Chilled glass, no lemon. Is that really so complicated?" "My apologies, Miss Ditt." "I'll replace it immediately," Maya said, her smile plastered on. "See that you do?" Serafina waved her away without looking up, turning her brilliant smile back to Nate. "Darling, I was telling Daddy about the merger, and he agrees." Maya retreated to the service station, her hands shaking slightly. It wasn't the complaint, it was the disdain, the casual, effortless way. Serafina made her feel small. Nate, as usual, just nodded, looking at a stock ticker on his phone. "That's great, Sarah." Great. Maya often wondered what he, a man who had built an empire from scratch, saw in a woman whose only visible talent was spending his money. They were the city's golden couple, plastered across society pages. But from Maya's vantage point, the gold looked like plating. She returned with the water, chilled to perfection. Serafina took a sip, her painted lips barely touching the rim. "Better," she allowed, as if granting a pardon. Maya nodded and backed away, invisible once more. She glanced at the couple. Nate was finally off his phone, looking at Serafina with a genuine, if tired, fondness. He was clearly in love, or at least in love with the idea of her. The idea of the perfect, stable, high society wife to complement his new money empire. Maya sighed, grabbing a tray of empty glasses. It wasn't her business. She was just the waitress. Her job was to serve the fantasy, not question it. It happened on a rainy Tuesday, typically the slowest day of the week. Maya had been called in to cover a double shift for a sick colleague, a grueling 16-hour stretch that would leave her feet feeling like bruised fruit. The lunch crowd was sparse, mostly business accounts and ladies who lunched. At 1 p.m., the hostess seated a couple at table 10, a discreet booth in the back corner, Myers's section. She grabbed her notepad and plastered on her Edius smile, striding over. "Welcome to Edis. Can I get you started with Maya Stop Dead?" It was Serafina Dwight, but the man across from her was not Nathaniel Sterling. This man was dark-haired with a sharp suit and a shark-like smile. Maya recognized him instantly from the business journals she'd seen Nate reading. It was Marcus Thorne, Nate's best friend, college roommate, and the chief operating officer of Sterling Innovations. "Just champagne," Serafina said, not even glancing at Maya. "A bottle of the Dom Perignon Rosé and be quick." "Of course," Maya murmured, backing away, her mind racing. A business lunch, maybe. But the way they were sitting was all wrong. Their knees were touching under the small table. Serafina, usually so composed and icy, was giggling. She reached across the table, her hand clears throat, landing on Marcus. He turned his hand over and laced his fingers through hers. Maya's stomach twisted. She retrieved the champagne, her hands suddenly cold. She performed the service, pouring the bubbling pink liquid with practiced ease, her eyes studiously avoiding the couple. "That will be all, Maria," Serafina said, dismissing her with a wave and getting her name wrong, as she always did. "It's Maya," she corrected softly before she could stop herself. Serafina's eyes, a cold, clear blue, finally lifted to meet hers. "Pardon? My name is Maya, Mom." Serafina's smile was thin and dangerous. "I don't really care what your name is. Just go." Maya retreated to the shadows of the service station, her blood boiling. But the anger was quickly replaced by a sickening shock. From her vantage point, she could see table reflected in a large antique mirror on the far wall. She watched as Marcus leaned in, his voice low. Serafina laughed again, a throaty sound Maya had never heard from her. Then, leaning across the table, Marcus kissed her. It wasn't a peck. It was a long, deep, passionate kiss right in the middle of Ethos. Maya felt like she'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't a flirtation. This was a full-blown affair. And it was with Nate Sterling's best friend, the man who was practically his brother. She watched them for another 30 minutes, hidden behind a marble pillar, polishing silverware that was already clean. They were planning something. She caught snippets of conversation. "Prenup is ironclad, but he trusts me." Marcus was saying the acquisition funds. "It's all routed through the secondary holding." Serafina traced the rim of her glass. "And you're sure? After the wedding, we can leverage it." "After the wedding, Nate won't know what hit him. He's so blinded by the perfect life he thinks he's building. He's forgotten to read the fine print. And he certainly doesn't read his COO's private expense reports." Maya felt dizzy. This wasn't just cheating. This was a conspiracy. They weren't just betraying Nate's heart. They were planning to rob him. She spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of nauseated panic. What was she supposed to do? This was a secret that could detonate lives. If she said something, Serafina would have her fired. She'd be blacklisted from every fine dining restaurant in the city, her mother's medical care gone. If she said nothing, she would be letting this happen. She'd be serving champagne to vipers while they plotted the downfall of a man who, while distracted, had always been decent to her. She finished her shift, her mind a war zone. By the time she clocked out at 11 Waterban, she had decided. She would say nothing. It wasn't her life. It wasn't her business. It was just a job. 3 days later, Friday night, the restaurant was slammed. The energy in Edius was electric, a humming symphony of clinking glasses, hushed negotiations, and celebratory murmurs. Maya was in the weeds juggling 4 demanding tables. At 8:00 p.m., the hostess seated table 7. Clears throat, Nate and Serafina. "I'll be right with you," Maya called, her voice bright and false. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Seeing them together, knowing what she knew, made her feel physically ill. Serafina was late, which was unusual. Nate was already at the table, a single glass of scotch in his hand, his brow furrowed. He was staring at his phone, but not scrolling, just staring. Serafina finally swept in at 8:15 p.m., a vision in a silk dress that probably cost more than Mir's car. "Darling, I am so sorry," she gushed. kissing the air near his cheek. The charity board meeting ran completely over. You know how passionate I am about the Children's Literacy Fund. Maya, who was standing nearby taking an order from another table, flinched. She'd heard that same excuse used with Marcus on Tuesday. It's fine, Sarah, Nate said, his voice flat. He put his phone away. Let's just order. The entire dinner was tense. Nate was quiet, withdrawn. Serafina, perhaps sensing his mood, was trying too hard, her laughter brittle and loud. She was also consequently even more demanding of Maya. This steak is medium, not medium rare, she snapped, pushing her plate away after one bite. Are you blind or just incompetent? My deepest apologies, Miss Ditt. I will have the chef refire it immediately. Don't bother, Serafina said, waving a hand. You've already ruined the pacing of the meal. Just get me an espresso and make sure it's hot this time. Clears throat. Yes, Mom. Maya gathered the plate, her cheeks burning. As she walked away, she heard Nate say, Sarah, for God's sake, it was a steak. Don't be cruel. I'm not being cruel, darling. Serafina's voice sharpened. I'm expecting competence. It's what we pay for. It's what you should expect from your own employees. If they can't do the job, they should be fired. Maya set the plate down in the kitchen, her hands trembling. This woman was lecturing Nate on loyalty and competence while actively plotting to destroy him. The hypocrisy was staggering. She returned with the espresso. Serafina had excused herself to powder her nose, leaving Nate alone at the table. He was rubbing the bridge of his nose, his $50,000 watch catching the light. He looked exhausted. Maya placed the espresso on the table. Mr. Sterling. He looked up, his gray eyes weary. Yes, Maya. My apologies for her. She's stressed. It's all right, sir. This was the moment. The door was open. Her brain was screaming, no, don't lose your job. But her heart was pounding a different rhythm. Tell him. Tell him. She took a deep, shuddering breath. Mr. Sterling, I know this isn't my place, and I know you have every reason to think I'm lying or crazy or trying to cause trouble, but I have to tell you something. He frowned, his attention finally fully on her. What is it? Your fiancée, Ms. DeWitt. She's cheating on you. The words hung in the air, instantly sucking the warmth from their table. Nate's expression didn't change for a full 10 seconds. It just hardened. The weary distraction vanished, replaced by a glacial coldness. What did you just say? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I saw her on Tuesday at lunch in this restaurant at table 10. She was with Marcus Thorne, your COO. They kissed it, sir. And I overheard them talking about the wedding and about funds. It sounded like they're planning to do something to your company after the wedding. Maya's pulse was so loud she could barely hear the restaurant. Nate stared at her. The silence stretched, becoming agonizing. She saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Not shock, not sadness, but pure, unadulterated fury. How dare you? Nate Sterling whispered. The words were quiet, but they hit Mir like a slap. Sir, I'm telling the truth. You dare to stand there? He hissed, his voice low and shaking with rage. And feed me these gossip column lies. You a waitress trying to destroy my relationship? What is this? A shakedown? Are you going to ask for money to keep quiet next? No. Mr. Sterling, I swear, I just thought you should know. You thought wrong. His face was stone. You are wildly, offensively out of line. At that precise moment, Serafina returned, gliding back to the table, her lipstick freshly applied. What's wrong, darling? You look like you've seen a ghost. She glanced at Maya, who was standing frozen, her face pale. Oh, what did she do now? Spill something on you? Nate didn't look at Serafina. He kept his arctic gray eyes locked on Maya. This waitress was just spinning a ridiculous story, a fantasy. Serafina's eyes narrowed. She looked from Nate's furious face to Maya's terrified one. A flicker of understanding and panic crossed her features, but she masked it instantly with a theatrical scoff. Oh, darling, really? She laughed, a brittle, ugly sound. What did she say? That I'm secretly a spy? That I'm leaving you for a poor artist? She turned her venom on Maya. The help gets so pathetically jealous. It's sad. They see a life they can never dream of having, and they try to tear it down. She placed a perfectly manicured hand on Nate's shoulder. "Nate, have her fired now. I don't want to look at her." Maya's heart stopped. "Mr. Sterling, please." Nate looked at Serafina, then back at Mir. His face was an unreadable mask. He had built his empire by cutting out cancers, by making ruthless decisions. A disloyal employee, a voice spitting poison. It was an easy calculation. He raised a single finger, summoning the restaurant manager, a severe man named Mr. Dubois. "Mr. Sterling, is there a problem?" Dubois asked, gliding over. "This employee," Nate said, gesturing to Maya without looking at her, "has been fabricating malicious and insulting stories about my fiancée. I want her gone now." "But sir," Maya gasped. "Mr. Sterling, I assure you," Dubois began, already sweating. "If she is working here tomorrow," Nate said, his voice final, "I will not only pull my personal account, but I will ensure every single one of my corporate clients, which, as you know, make up 30% of your revenue, blacklist this establishment. Am I clear?" Dubois turned pale. He looked at Mir with pure hatred. "Donovan, go to my office. Get your things. You are terminated." Mr. Dubois, please." "I was just now," he barked. Tears sprang to Mir's eyes, hot and humiliating. She looked at Nate Sterling one last time, clears throat. He was arranging his napkin in his lap, his expression utterly blank, as if she had already ceased to exist. Serafina was watching her, a small, triumphant smile playing on her perfect lips. Maya turned and walked away, the entire dining room seeming to stare at her back. She had told the truth. She had tried to do the right thing, and it had cost her everything. She was fired, humiliated, and utterly, hopelessly ruined. As she pushed through the kitchen doors, the last sound she heard was Serafina's light, victorious laughter. Maya Donovan walked out of Edis into the cold New York night, the manager's parting words ringing in her ears. "You'll never work in this town again." She was unemployed, blacklisted, and terrified. The next week was a blur of failed job applications and mounting panic. The temp agency jobs she could get were in dish pits and dive bars, paying a fraction of what she needed for her mother's care. She felt like a fool. She had gambled her entire life on a stranger's integrity and lost. Meanwhile, Nate Sterling tried to forget the incident. He told himself Mia was a disgruntled employee, a desperate woman looking for a payout. He threw himself into his work, preparing for the massive engagement party Serafina was planning for the following week at the Plaza Hotel. But the waitress's words, they were like a splinter under his skin. She was with Marcus Thorne. He found himself watching. He'd always trusted Marcus implicitly. Their friendship was forged in late-night coding sessions in a dorm room. Marcus was his COO, his best friend, his best man. But now he watched. He noticed how Serafino and Marcus were suddenly never in the same room. At a charity gala, he saw Marcus watching Serafina across the ballroom. It wasn't a friendly look. It was possessive. He noticed how Serafina, who was supposedly planning every detail of their wedding, seemed completely uninterested. When he asked her about the catering, she'd wave him off. "Marcus is handling the vendor contracts, darling. It's so boring." Marcus is handling the contracts. Then came the red flag he couldn't ignore. He was in a board meeting reviewing the finances for a new acquisition, a holding company in the Cayman Islands. "This offshore account, Marcus," Nate said, pointing to a line item. "The clears throat one for the Aries acquisition. Why are we routing $20 million through it before the deal is closed?" "It's a risk." Marcus didn't blink. "It's an earnest payment, Nate. A sign of good faith," the sellers insisted. "It's standard procedure for a deal this sensitive." Nate nodded, but something felt off. That night he went home. Serafina was asleep. He told himself he wouldn't, that it was a violation of trust. But the splinter was digging deeper. He picked up her phone. It was locked, of course, but he was a tech billionaire. Her fingerprint scanner was easily bypassed with a simple thermal lift. He'd seen her type her backup passcode. 814, August 14th, his birthday. The irony was sick. He opened her messages, his heart hammered. He went straight to her text with Marcus. The entire thread was deleted, wiped clean. He checked her recently deleted folder. Empty, but they weren't professionals. They were arrogant. He went to her messaging app data in the cloud backup. And there it was, the entire undid history. Sarah, he's getting suspicious. He asked about the account. Marcus, relax. He's a genius at code, but a fool at people. He trusts me. By the time he figures out the $20 million is gone, we'll be in Tahiti. Sarah, I can't wait. This party on Saturday is going to kill me. Playing the adoring fiancé is exhausting. Marcus, just one more week of pretending, and then we're free and rich. Richer than he ever made me. Sarah, what about the waitress? The one at AUS? Marcus, she's gone. Fired. Blacklisted. She's a non-issue. Nobody. The phone slipped from Nate's hand, clattering onto the marble floor. The sound was deafening in the silent penthouse. It wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just a $20 million theft. It was everything. His best friend. His future wife. They were planning to gut his company and bleed him dry. The waitress, Maya, he reread the text. She's a non-issue. Nobody. She was the only person who had told him the truth. The only one. And he had destroyed her. A cold, clear, terrifying calm settled over Nate Sterling. The kind of calm he got before launching a hostile takeover. The fog of love and distraction was gone, burned away by the acid of betrayal. He looked at Serafina, sleeping peacefully in his bed, a picture of innocence. The party, he whispered to himself. You want a party, Sarah? You'll get one. He spent the next 48 hours in a locked office, not sleeping, just making calls. To his lawyers, to his real security team, the one Marcus didn't control, and to the manager of Adius, Mr. Dubois. Nate's voice was ice. I need your security footage from last Tuesday, table 10, and I need the name and last known address of the waitress I had you fire. Maya Donovan. The ballroom at the Plaza Hotel was a fantasy of white roses and shimmering crystal. 200 of New York's most powerful and influential people had gathered for the engagement party of Nathaniel Sterling and Serafina DeWitt. It was the event of the season. Serafina was radiant in a custom blood-red Vera Wang gown, a 30-carat diamond, a pre-wedding gift from Nate glittering at her throat. Marcus Thorne was at her side, playing the part of the supportive friend, while Nate worked the room, smiling, shaking hands. The perfect proud groom-to-be. They looked so happy, one socialite murmured to another, sipping Dom Perigno. A perfect match, her friend agreed. Power and class. After the appetizers, Nate Sterling stepped onto the stage, tapping a champagne flute. The room hushed. Thank you all for coming, Nate began, his voice smooth and warm. He smiled, and the smile was brilliant. He looked right at Serafina, who beamed back at him. Tonight is about celebration, about finding that one person, the one you can trust completely, the one you want to build a life with. He raised his glass. To my fiancée, Serafina. To Serafina, the room echoed. Serafina has taught me so much, Nate continued, his smile never wavering. She's taught me about loyalty, about family, and about accountability. He then turned his gaze to Marcus Thorne. And of course, I have to thank my best man, my brother. Marcus, where would I be without you? Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. To the happy couple. Before we cut the cake, Nate said, I wanted to share a little video, a tribute. I've been working on it all week. It's about truth, about seeing things for what they really are. A huge screen descended behind him. Serafina looked confused but pleased, clearly expecting a montage of their love story. Roll the clip, Nate said into the microphone. The screen flickered, but it wasn't a photo of them in Aspen. It was grainy black and white security footage. The timestamp in the corner reads, Tuesday, 1:17 p.m. The room gasped. The video, crystal clear, showed Serafina DeWitt and Marcus Thorne at table 10. It showed them holding hands. It showed them laughing. And then in agonizing high definition, it showed Marcus leaning over and kissing Serafina. A long, passionate, undeniable kiss. Serafina's face went white. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Nate, what is this? She whispered, her voice trembling. I believe it's you, Nate said, his voice still pleasant, but the microphone carried it to every corner of the silent, horrified room, committing adultery with my best friend. But please don't let me interrupt. The clip is comprehensive. The video continued, but now it wasn't just video. It was audio. Nate's security team had cross-referenced the video with encrypted text messages, displaying them on screen like subtitles. Marcus, he's a fool at people. He trusts me. Sarah, by the time he figures out the $20 million is gone, we'll be in Tahiti. The crowd's gasp turned into a low, horrified murmur. Serafina's father, a stony-faced patriarch, looked like he was going to be sick. Nate Serafina shrieked, lunging for the stage. It's fake. That's not real. It's a deep fake. Someone is trying to frame us. Fake? Nate asked, his voice finally turning as cold as steel. You mean this isn't you? And this? He gestured to the screen, which now showed a bank transfer from Sterling Innovations to the offshore holding, and then an immediate transfer from that account to a private one in Zurich. This isn't your signature, Marcus, the one authorizing the transfer of $20 million of my company's money. Marcus Thorne was frozen, his face the color of ash. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Nate announced to the crowd, I thought I was just dealing with a simple affair, but it turns out I was funding my own hostile takeover. Nate, please. Serafina was openly sobbing now, clutching at his arm. Darling, he forced me. He threatened me. I was scared. I love you. Nate looked at her hand on his tuxedo sleeve, then looked at her with pure, unadulterated contempt. Get your hands off me. He shook her off and she stumbled. The engagement is off, Nate said into the mic. Oh, and Serafina, that fidelity clause in our prenup, the one your lawyer told you was standard. It's not, it's mine. It's triggered by infidelity, and it means you get absolutely nothing. Not the penthouse, not the diamond, nothing. Security will escort you out. Two large men in black suits moved toward her. And as for you, Marcus, Nate said, turning to his former friend, who was trying to slip out the side door. I'm afraid your flight to Tahiti is canceled. The board held an emergency vote this morning. You're removed as COO, effective immediately. And those two gentlemen by the door, they aren't my security. They're NYPD. They're here to arrest you for embezzlement and wire fraud. As the officers moved in and snapped handcuffs on Marcus's wrists, he stared at Nate, his face a mask of disbelief and hatred. You bastard! No, Marcus, Nate said, adjusting his suit jacket. I'm just a man who finally started reading the fine print. And I had a little help. He looked directly into the camera one of the event videographers was holding, a woman I fired, a waitress named Maya Donovan. She was the only person with the courage to tell me the truth, and I was too arrogant to listen. I owe her my entire company and my life. He tapped the microphone one last time. Thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the shrimp. He stepped off the stage, leaving behind the ruins of Serafina's life, the gasping crowd, and the flashing cameras of the police, and walked out of the ballroom without looking back. For 2 months, Maya Donovan's life was a special kind of hell. She was surviving on instant noodles and the dwindling savings she'd hoarded. She'd finally found a job at the Morningstar Diner in Queens, a cash-in-hand gig working the graveyard shift. The pay was terrible. The customers were often drunk, but it was honest, and it was far from the world of Edis. Her mother's medical bills were piling up, and the threat of eviction was constant. She'd heard whispers about what happened at the plaza. It was the biggest scandal of the year. Billionaire busts, cheating fiancé, and epic takedown. She'd seen the blurry photos of Serafina being escorted out, of Marcus in cuffs. She felt a grim satisfaction, but it didn't pay the bills. She felt no vindication. Nate Sterling had never reached out, never apologized, never even sent a thank you note. He'd used her name in his speech, which had only resulted in tabloid reporters harassing her for a week until they too got bored of the poor waitress's angle. She was, as Marcus had said, a non-issue. One night at 3:00 a.m., the bell above the diner door jingled. The place was empty, save for a lone truck driver in a corner booth. Maya was wiping down the counter, her back to the door. Seat yourself, she called out, her voice rough with exhaustion. Coffee's fresh. I'll take a cup. Black. Maya froze. She knew that voice. She turned around slowly. It was Nathaniel Sterling. He wasn't in a $5,000 suit. He was wearing jeans, a simple gray Henley and a worn leather jacket. He looked normal and just as tired as she felt. He sat at the counter, his gray eyes watching her. "What are you doing here?" Mayo asked, her hand tightening on the rag. She wasn't stark. She was angry. "I came to apologize," he said, his voice quiet, "and to thank you." "You're a little late," she said, her voice flat. She poured him a cup of coffee. The mug was thick, chipped porcelain. "You thanked me in your speech. It was great PR for you. It got me ounded by press and fired from the one temp job I'd managed to find." Nate flinched. I didn't realize I was handling the fallout, the arrest, the lawsuits. I've been in legal hell for 8 weeks. We all have our problems, Mr. Sterling. Mine's a $4,000 medical bill that was due yesterday. This coffee is $150. She pushed the cup toward him. He deserved her anger. He knew it. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He slid it across the counter. "This isn't charity. It's a severance from Otis. I bought the restaurant." Maya looked at him stunned. "You what?" "I bought it this morning. Your manager Dubois is gone. Your first act as the new general manager, should you want the job, is to rehire yourself. The envelope contains a cashier's check for $100,000. That's for back pay, damages, and for what I put you through. It's not enough, but it's a start." Maya stared at the envelope, her heart clear as throat, pounding. $100,000. It would solve everything. Her mother's care, the apartment, she could breathe. She pushed the envelope back toward him. "No," she said. Nate looked genuinely shocked. "No, Maya, please. I don't want your restaurant," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "I don't want your money. I'm done with that world. I'm done with people who look through you. And I'm done with men who need their entire lives to explode before they believe a woman who is telling them the truth. I'm tired, Mr. Sterling. I just want to be left alone." Nate Sterling, the man who negotiated billion-dollar deals and crushed his enemies, looked completely lost. He had come expecting gratitude, absolution. He had come with a solution that to him was simple: money. He had never encountered a problem that money couldn't solve. He looked at Maya, really looked at her for the first time. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the set of her jaw. She wasn't just tired. She was proud. She had an integrity that his $100,000 check felt cheap next to. He nodded slowly. He picked up the coffee cup and took a sip. It was bitter, slightly burned. "This is good coffee," he said. "It's terrible," she replied, a small, tired smile touching her lips for the first time. "No," he said, holding her gaze. "It's the most honest thing I've tasted in years." He left the envelope on the counter. "It's yours whether you want it or not. It's what I owe you. But I understand about the job." He stood up, put a $20 bill on the counter for the coffee, and walked to the door. His hand was on the handle when he turned back. "For what it's worth, Maya, I am truly, profoundly sorry. I was a fool." He left. Maya stared at the envelope. She didn't touch it. Not for a long time. For 2 months, Maya Donovan's life was a special kind of hell. The adrenaline of the truth, the grim satisfaction of seeing the scandal splashed across the New York Post. Billionaire's ball bust. Fiancée and COO busted in 20 limits fraud. It all faded. Vindication, she learned, didn't pay the bills. Nate Sterling's speech, where he'd named her, had seemed heroic for a moment, but in reality, it had just painted a target on her back. For 2 weeks, sleazy reporters had camped outside her apartment building, waving checkbooks, shouting questions. How did it feel? Did he sleep with you? Are you the new girlfriend? They even found her mother's apartment, terrifying her until Maya had to file a police report for harassment. She'd been forced to move to change her number. The wrongful termination suit her pro bono lawyer was optimistic about was stalled in a mountain of paperwork, and she was broke. She finally found a job, the 1000 p.m. to 6:01 a.m. shift at the Morning Star Diner in a remote part of Queens. It was cash in hand under the table. The clientele was a mix of graveyard shift cops, truckers, and drunk stragglers from the local bar. The pay was abysmal. The smell of stale coffee and grease clung to her hair. Her mother's MS medication was a constant ticking clock. The bill for this month's infusion was $4,000. Maya had $700. She was in a new kind of prison. She'd done the right thing, and the world had rewarded her by making her invisible again. Only this time, she was invisible and radioactive. Nate Sterling, the man she had saved, had vanished back into his world of penis and private jets. He'd used her name for his dramatic finale and then discarded her, just like Serafina had. He was, she decided, just a different side of the same coin. It was 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. The diner was empty, save for a long-haul trucker named S nursing his fourth coffee in a corner booth. Rain lashed against the windows. Maya was wiping down the sticky vinyl counter, her feet throbbing, her mind a numb fog of exhaustion. She was calculating if she skipped her own meals for the next 2 weeks and took her mother's COA directly from her rent money. The bell above the door jingled, a tiny, cheerful sound that made her flinch. "Sat yourself," she called out, her voice rough, her back clear as throat, still to the door. "Be with you in a minute. Coffee is fresh. Ish. I'll take a cup. Black." The voice cut through the diner's sleepy hum like a razor. It was quiet, but it held an authority that didn't belong with the smell of old bacon grease. Maya's hand froze on the counter. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't possible. She was so tired she was hallucinating. She turned around slowly. He was sitting at the counter, water dripping from his dark hair onto the shoulders of a simple worn leather jacket. It wasn't Nathaniel Sterling, the tech titan from the society pages. He was wearing jeans and a faded gray Henley. He looked normal. He looked exhausted. His usually sharp, analytical gray eyes were shadowed, and he had the beginnings of a beard. But it was him. For a full minute, they just stared at each other. He looked at her uniform, a pale mustard yellow polyester thing with Ma badly stitched on the pocket. He saw the dark circles under her eyes. He saw her hands red and chapped from the industrial dish soap, and in his eyes she saw something she didn't expect. Shame. Clear's throat. Maya was the first to move. She grabbed a thick chipped mug from the shelf, slammed it on the counter, and filled it from the pot. The coffee was sludgy and smelled burned. She pushed it toward him. "What are you doing here, Mr. Sterling?" she asked. Her voice was flat, dead. "We're a little low rent for your crowd, and we don't serve Dom Perrin." "Maya," he said, "just her name." "That'll be 150, she said, tapping the ancient cash register. "Unless you're planning on having me fired from here, too." "Might be a new record." He flinched as if she'd slapped him. I came to apologize." Maya let out a short, bitter laugh that sounded more like a cough. "Apologize? That's great. You're about 2 months and $4,000 late, but go ahead. I'm sure it'll be a fantastic, well-rehearsed speech. You're good at those." I've been in legal hell," he began. "The lawsuits, the SEC, the fraud investigations." "Oh, you've been busy?" Maya snapped, her exhaustion finally cracking to reveal the white-hot rage underneath. "You've been busy. Well, so have I. I've been busy dodging reporters you sent to my door. I've been busy moving my sick mother to a new apartment because your tribute made her a target. I've been busy trying to find a job after you and your Ice Queen fiancé had me blacklisted from every decent restaurant in Manhattan. So you can take your apology and your 150 coffee and get the hell out of my diner." She was trembling, her knuckles white on the rag she was clutching. Nate didn't move. He just sat there taking it. The color had drained from his face. "I didn't know," he whispered. "The reporters, I didn't. God, Maya, I was so focused on the blast radius. I didn't think about you." "That's the point," she cried, her voice cracking. "You never thought about me. I was just the help. I was the crazy waitress. I was a non-issue. Wasn't that the word they used? You only believed me when you saw it on a screen. You didn't believe me. You didn't trust a human being. You trusted a data file. And then at your party you used my name. That wasn't for me. That was for your ego. It was to make you look like the hero who listened to the little person. You have no idea what you did." The diner was silent, save for the hum of the fluorescent lights and the rain. S in the corner was pretending to be asleep. Nate closed his eyes. He looked broken. "You're right," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "You're right about all of it. I was a fool. I was arrogant. I live in a world of sharks. And I forgot what an honest person looked like when you told me I didn't see someone trying to help me. I saw a threat to the perfect life I was trying to build. A life that was, as you saw, a complete lie. There is no excuse for what I did to you. None. And sorry is a pathetic, useless word. He reached into his jacket. He didn't pull out a wallet. He pulled out a thick, legal-sized envelope and slid it across the counter. I can't undo what I did, he said. I can't give you back the last 2 months, but this is a start. Maya looked at the envelope with suspicion. What is it? A gag order. It's 2 things. First, a cashier's check for $250,000. Maya's breath hitched. She stared at the envelope, unable to move. It's not a gift, he said quickly. It's not hush money. I had my lawyers draft it as an official expedited settlement for wrongful termination, emotional distress, and defamation. It's what you were owed. It's what I cost you. It's a fraction of what you saved me. The second thing I bought at, she looked up, stunned. You what? I bought it last week. My first act was to fire Mr. Dubois. My second was to have the entire staff retrained in basic human decency. The envelope also contains a contract. It's for the position of general manager with a controlling stake in the restaurant's operations. It's your restaurant, Maya, if you want it. He'd come in with a solution, a billionaire solution. Buy the problem. Buy the forgiveness. Fix it with money and a promotion. Maya looked at the envelope. That money, it was her mother's life. It was a new apartment. It was breathing room. Clear's throat. It was everything. She slowly reached out and took the envelope. She opened it, pulled out the check, and stared at the numbers. It was real. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to put it on the counter. Then she took the contract for general manager, and without looking at it, she tore it in half. Then she tore it in quarters. Nate's eyes widened. Maya, I'm taking the money, she said, her voice shaking but gaining strength. She folded the check and put it in her apron pocket. I'm taking it as the settlement you said it was. It's what you owe me. But the job, she dropped the pieces of the contract on the counter. You can keep your restaurant. I am done with that world. I am done with people who need 3 Saint-star reviews to feel important. And I'm done with men who think they can buy and sell people's lives. I told you the truth because it was the right thing to do, not to get a promotion. Clear's throat. You still don't get it. She turned her back to him, picking up her rag. I have to wipe down the pie case. Your $150 is on the house. Please go. For a long time, he Clear's throat, just sat there. She could feel his eyes on her back. She refused to turn around, fighting back the tears that were finally threatening to fall. She heard him sigh, a deep, heavy sound. He slid off the stool. He placed a $100 bill on the counter for the coffee and for Sal's. She heard his footsteps. The bell jingled and he was gone. Only when she was sure he wasn't coming back did she slump against the counter, pull the check from her pocket, and let herself cry. They were tears of relief, of anger, of a profound, soul-deep exhaustion. She had her life back, but she had to tear it from his hands. The next day, Maya quit the diner. The day after that, she paid off every single one of her mother's outstanding medical bills. She moved them both into a bright, safe 2-bedroom apartment near a park, an apartment with a doorman who didn't let in reporters. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't drowning. The money was a shield. It gave her the one thing she'd never had, a choice, and she chose to go back to school. She enrolled in the accelerated nursing program she had abandoned years ago. She traded her waitress uniform for scrubs, her serving tray for anatomy textbooks. She found a quiet satisfaction in the hard, tangible work. In her clinicals, she was praised for her calm demeanor, her keen observational skills. She was good at it. She was good at helping. She didn't hear from Nate. The IDT's contract was a clear rejection. He had made his grand gesture and she had thrown it back in his face. He was gone. 4 months passed. It was spring. Maya was cutting through Central Park after a brutal midterm exam, her head buried in flashcards. She wasn't paying attention when she sat on a bench near the reservoir. He's going to pull a hamstring if he doesn't stretch. The voice was quiet next to her. She looked up. It was him, Nate. He was in running gear, nursing a bottle of water. He looked thinner but healthier. The shadows under his eyes were gone. Maya's heart did a strange, complicated flip. What? He nodded toward a runner who was pounding the track. That guy, his form is all off. He's landing on his heel. You'd know, right? Nursing student. She stared at him. How? How did you know that? I asked. He admitted, looking sheepish. I wanted to make sure you were okay, that the money was enough. I found out you'd enrolled. I didn't want to bother you, but I run here every day. She realized with a jolt he hadn't sought her out. They had just collided. Oh, she said. She put her flashcards away. Well, you're right. He's definitely going to have shin splints. They sat in silence. It wasn't the agonizing silence of the diner. It was peaceful. You look good, Maya, he said softly. You look healthy. I am, she said. And you? You look less like a man whose life is exploding. A small smile touched his lips. It's not. It's quiet. I sold. I never wanted to be a restaurateur. I needed to make that right, or try to. What about Serafina and Marcus? She asked, unable to help herself. The trial's next month, he said, his face hardening slightly. Marcus is facing significant jail time for the fraud. Serafina, she's lost everything. Her family's reputation, the money. She's socially exiled. She'll be testifying against him for a lighter sentence. It's a mess, he sighed, rubbing his face. I've rebuilt my board, this time with better people, more observant people. He looked at her. I never said it. Maya, not properly. Thank you. You didn't just save my company. You saved me from becoming a person I despise. She nodded. She finally believed him. They started talking, not as a billionaire and a waitress, just as Nate and Mir. She told him about the frustrations of her anatomy professor. He told her about the absurdity of his new HR director. They talked for an hour until the sun started to dip. He didn't ask for her number. He just said, "See you around, Maya." But he was there the next day, and she was too. Their bench meetings became a ritual. They became coffee runs. He'd show up after her class, 2 cups in hand. He learned her order, a latte, extra hot, 1/4 sweet. She learned he was terrible at small talk, but a surprisingly good listener. He was healing. She was learning to trust. It was slow. He never once flashed his money. He showed up in jeans. He took her to a hole-in-the-wall pizza place she loved. He met her mother, who grilled him mercilessly for an hour and then surprisingly declared him a good boy with a bad history. About a year after their first meeting at the diner, he took her out. He was nervous, which he found endearing. I have a surprise, he said. He drove her not to a flashy downtown restaurant, but to Queens, to the Morningstar Diner. Nate, what is this? She asked, confused. The open sign was off. I have a reservation, he said, smiling. He led her inside. The diner was empty, but every table was set with a clean cloth and a single candle. The smell of grease was gone, replaced by something good. I rented it for the night, he said, pulling out her chair in the same booth S used to occupy. And I hired the cook, but I'm your server. He was wearing a clean white apron over his nice shirt. Nate, this is insane, she laughed. No, he said, his voice suddenly serious. This is where I really met you. This is the place where you were at your lowest and you were still the strongest, most decent person I'd ever known. You were running on no sleep. You were terrified. And you still tore up a multi-million-dollar contract because it wasn't right. He didn't bring them food. He just sat across from her. I've been trying to figure out how to do this, he said, his hands visibly shaking. I've been in boardrooms where a single word could cost $1 billion. And I wasn't this nervous. He reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a velvet box. He pulled out a simple, small, unadorned wooden box. I don't want a partner who agrees with me, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't want a high society wife. God knows I don't want that. I want a partner who will call me on my crap. Someone who will tell me the truth even when it's hard. Someone who knows the difference between a 5-star meal and a bad cup of coffee that means everything. He slid out of the booth and got down on one knee right there on the diner's worn checkered floor. Maya Donovan, you are my moral compass. You are my best friend. You are the only person I trust completely and absolutely. You saved my life and then you taught me how to live it. He opened the box. Inside was not a massive Serafina-style diamond. It was a sapphire, a deep, clear blue surrounded by two small, simple, brilliant cut diamonds. It matches your eyes when you're being stubborn. He smiled. Will you marry me, Maya? Not as a billionaire, just as Nate, the guy who desperately needs you to keep him honest. Maya was crying, the tears she'd refused to shed in this very diner a year ago. But this time, they weren't tears of anger or fear. She thought of the journey, the humiliation at Edis, the terror of that 3 a.m. shift, the quiet healing in the park, the easy laughter over pizza. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a real messy, painful, and beautiful story, and it was theirs. Yes, she whispered, cupping his face. Yes, Nate, I will. He slid the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. He stood, pulling her to her feet, and kissed her. A kiss that wasn't about power or deals or a perfect life, but about two broken people who had, against all odds, made each other whole. In the end, it wasn't about money or status. It was about courage. Maya Donovan had a nothing, but she was brave enough to speak the truth, even when it cost her everything. And Nathaniel Sterling, who had everything, learned that the most valuable asset in the world isn't wealth, but loyalty. Their story proves that karma always finds its way, and that true love can be found in the most unexpected of places. Not in a grand ballroom, but in a humble diner over a bad cup of coffee. Serafina and Marcus faced the consequences of their greed, but Nate and Maya found something priceless, a partnership built on honesty. What did you think of Serafina's epic takedown at the party? Let us know in the comments below. If you love stories about explosive drama and ultimate karma, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend who needs to see it, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story.